They forced the black woman to cook in the kitchen, steam rising from boiling pots as her torn sleeve revealed the intricate tattoo beneath, catching the sharp eyes of the wealthy cowboy who'd just entered the saloon. The patrons saw her as nothing more than kitchen help, invisible hands that prepared their meals while they drank and gambled away their fortunes. Her fate seemed sealed, a lifetime of servitude in the sweltering heat, forgotten by the world beyond those swinging doors. But the rich cattleman recognized something in the detailed markings on her dark skin, symbols that matched the mysterious maps his late father had left behind. If her tattoo held the key to his inheritance, it could unlock both their destinies and expose dangerous secrets that powerful men would kill to protect. Would this chance discovery free them both, or would the forces hunting that hidden treasure destroy them before they could claim what was rightfully theirs? Before we continue, comment where you are tuning in from. Perhaps we will publish a story there. The wooden spoon burned against Zara Thompson's palm as she stirred the massive pot of stew. Steam rose from the kitchen like smoke from a battlefield. Her back ached from 12 hours of constant work. The Red Rock Saloon never slept, and neither did she. Through the swinging doors she heard the familiar sounds of gambling and drinking, men who looked through her like she was air, men who demanded their meals hot and their service silent. She had learned long ago to keep her eyes down and her mouth shut. Silas Crane pushed through the kitchen doors, his belly straining against his stained vest. He owned everything in this room, including her. The contract in his safe made that clear. 5 more years of debt to work off, he claimed. 5 more years of sleeping in the storage room behind sacks of flour. "Table 6 wants more bread," he barked, "and wipe that sweat off your face before you serve it." Zara nodded without looking up. She had perfected the art of invisible obedience. But beneath her downcast eyes, her mind worked differently than Crane suspected. She counted every coin that crossed the bar. She read every newspaper the customers left behind. She remembered every conversation about land deals and cattle prices. 12 years ago, her life had been different. California sunshine. A father who taught her mathematics and geography. A house filled with books and maps. Augustus Thompson had been a respected man in Sacramento. He had shown her how to read the land, how to understand the stories written in rivers and mountain ranges. Then came the night when strange men broke down their door. Her father's desperate whispers as he pressed the hot needle into her skin. The burning sensation as he etched his most precious secret into her forearm. His final words before they dragged him away and threw her into the back of a wagon. The saloon doors swung open with unusual force. Zara glanced up to see a tall man in expensive leather boots. His clothes marked him as money, real money, not the dusty cowboys and failing merchants who usually filled these tables. James Harrison surveyed the room with calculating eyes. He had ridden hard from his ranch outside Denver, following a trail of legal documents that made little sense. His father's death had left him with more questions than answers. Land deeds for territory he had never seen. Survey maps that led to places that might not exist. Crane appeared at his side instantly, the way he always did when wealthy customers arrived. "What can I get you, Mr. Harrison? We have the finest whiskey this side of the Mississippi." Buck Harrison ordered food and found a corner table. He spread his father's mysterious papers across the scarred wood. Every line and measurement seemed important, but the pattern escaped him. His father had been secretive in his final years. These documents felt like pieces of a puzzle with half the parts missing. Zara emerged from the kitchen carrying a plate of beef and potatoes. She moved with practiced invisibility, setting the food down without meeting his eyes. But something made her pause. The papers on his table showed familiar symbols, elevation markers and water sources that triggered memories she had buried deep. Buck noticed her hesitation. Most people ignored the help completely, but he had learned to observe details. His cattle business demanded it. This woman's quick glance at his papers was not random curiosity. Her eyes held intelligence that did not match her circumstances. "Do you know anything about surveying?" he asked quietly. Zara's training took over. She shook her head and stepped back toward the kitchen, but Buck had seen the recognition in her face. She understood those maps. The afternoon heat intensified. Zara's dress stuck to her skin as she worked over the stove. The fabric of her sleeve had been mended so many times that the patches had patches. As she lifted a heavy pot to the serving counter, the worn material finally gave way. The sleeve tore from shoulder to elbow, exposing her left forearm completely. Buck looked up from his papers at the sound of the ripping fabric. What he saw made him forget about his food entirely. Intricate lines covered her dark skin from wrist to elbow. Not random decorations, but precise geographical markings, topographical indicators that matched the mysterious surveys in his inheritance, mountain peaks, river systems, elevation numbers that corresponded exactly to his father's cryptic notations. Zara realized her exposure and quickly covered her arm with her other hand. But it was too late. The cowboy had seen everything. Her father's final gift was no longer secret. Buck's mind raced through possibilities. His father's papers suddenly made sense. This woman carried the missing pieces of the puzzle literally written on her skin. But how had a kitchen worker come to bear the markings of a professional surveyor? Crane noticed the torn sleeve from across the room. His eyes narrowed as he approached. Any disruption to his orderly system required investigation. He had not built his business by ignoring details. "Get that mended before you serve anyone else," he commanded. But Crane had glimpsed something else in that moment of exposure. Markings that suggested value beyond a servant's torn clothing. His instincts for profit began calculating new possibilities. Buck folded his papers carefully. The answers he sought were closer than he had imagined, but obtaining them would require delicate negotiation. The woman's obvious fear suggested that revealing her secret could bring danger to them both. The question now was whether fortune would unite them or destroy them before they could unlock the truth hidden beneath her skin. The evening crowd grew louder as whiskey loosened tongues and emptied pockets. Zara kept her arm pressed against her side, but she felt Buck Harrison's eyes following her movements. Every trip from kitchen to dining room increased her anxiety. The torn sleeve had exposed more than skin. It had revealed the secret she had guarded for 12 years. Crane hovered near the bar, his attention split between counting money and watching his kitchen worker. Something about the afternoon's incident nagged at him. The way the cowboy had stared. The way Zara had reacted. His instincts told him opportunity was slipping through his fingers. Buck waited until the dinner rush subsided. He approached the kitchen doors when Crane stepped outside to handle a dispute between drunk customers. The timing had to be perfect. One chance to get answers before suspicion turned dangerous. Zara scrubbed dishes in the wash basin, her movements mechanical after years of routine. She heard footsteps but assumed Crane had returned with new demands. Instead, Buck Harrison appeared beside her workstation. "I need to ask you something," he said softly. Zara kept her eyes on the dirty plates. "I got work to finish." Buck pulled out one of his father's survey maps. He spread it on the counter next to her wash basin. The paper showed mountain ranges and river systems drawn in precise detail. "These markings on your arm match this survey. That's not coincidence." Fear shot through Zara's chest. She had survived this long by remaining invisible. Drawing attention meant danger. Always. "Don't know nothing about maps," she whispered. Buck studied her face. 12 years of hiding had made her an expert at deception, but something in her voice betrayed knowledge she claimed not to possess. "My father left me these documents when he died. Land deeds for territory worth a fortune, but half the information is missing. The markings I saw on your arm complete the picture." Zara's hands trembled as she continued washing dishes. Her father's voice echoed across the years. Instructions given in desperate moments before they dragged him away. Trust no one. Hide the truth. Stay alive. "Where did you get those markings?" Buck pressed. The kitchen door swung open. Crane entered with two of his regular customers, men who enjoyed watching others squirm. His eyes immediately focused on Buck standing too close to his property. "Problem here, Mr. Harrison?" Buck stepped back casually. "Just complimenting the fine meal." Crane's suspicion was not easily deflected. He had built his business by reading people's motivations. Rich men did not linger in kitchens to praise the cooking. Zara's got dishes to finish. Maybe you'd be more comfortable at your table. The threat was subtle but clear. Buck nodded and retreated to the dining room, but he caught Zara's eye for one brief moment. In that glance, he saw intelligence she had spent years concealing. The saloon finally quieted near midnight. Crane counted his profits while the last customers stumbled into the street. Zara cleaned tables and swept floors, her usual closing routine. But tonight felt different. The cowboy's questions had awakened memories she tried to bury. Buck waited in the shadows behind the building. He had studied Crane's schedule for days. The man locked up precisely at 12:30 and walked home to his house 3 blocks away. That gave Buck a narrow window to approach Zara without witnesses. She emerged from the back door carrying a bucket of dishwater to dump in the alley. The moonlight revealed her exhaustion, but also something else, a wariness that suggested she expected him to be waiting. "You knew I'd be here," Buck observed. Zara set down the bucket. 12 years of survival had taught her to recognize turning points. This moment would determine whether her secret remained buried or exploded into the open. "You're not going to let this go," she said. Buck pulled out a different document from his coat. Not a survey map, but a legal paper bearing official seals. "My father's name was Jonathan Harrison. He worked for the federal government investigating land fraud. These papers show he was murdered 3 years ago while gathering evidence." Zara's breath caught. The name meant nothing, but the circumstances triggered painful recognition. "Your father drew those maps," Buck continued. "Professional quality work. Whoever marked your skin was a trained surveyor." The walls Zara had built around her past began cracking. She looked at this cowboy with his expensive clothes and determined eyes. Her father had trusted the wrong people once. That mistake cost him his life. "Why should I trust you?" Buck folded the document carefully. "Because I think the same people who killed my father killed yours. And I think you know who they are." The words hung in the night air between them. Zara felt the familiar weight of the secret she carried. Not just geographical information, but names and faces and crimes that powerful men would kill to protect. "Augustus Thompson," she whispered. "That was my father's name." Buck's eyes widened. The connection he suspected was real. He was working with my father. They were gathering evidence together. Zara pulled up her sleeve, revealing the complete tattoo in the moonlight. The intricate details showed not just one survey, but multiple territories. A master map connecting separate investigations. "He put this on me the night they came for him. Said it was the only way to keep the truth alive." Buck stared at the markings with new understanding. This was not just about land or money. It was about justice for murdered men and the evidence they died protecting. "Then we finish what they started," he said. The next morning brought danger with the sunrise. Crane had spent the night thinking about the torn sleeve and the cowboy's unusual interest in his kitchen worker. Money called to him like a church bell, and he sensed profit hiding in plain sight. He cornered Zara before the breakfast crowd arrived. His breath smelled of whiskey and greed. "That man Harrison was asking about you. Seems mighty interested in a cook. Makes me wonder what you're hiding." Zara kept her eyes on the bacon sizzling in the pan. "Don't know what you mean." Crane grabbed her arm where the sleeve had torn. His fingers pressed against the tattoo through the mended fabric. "These markings under here, they mean something, don't they?" Fear shot through Zara's chest. She had survived 12 years by staying invisible. Now exposure threatened everything. "Just old scars," she lied. But Crane's instincts smelled opportunity. He had built his fortune by recognizing value others missed. Something about this situation promised more profit than whiskey and gambling combined. "We'll see about that." Buck entered the saloon as the morning shift began. His sleep had been restless, filled with images of his father's murder and questions about the woman who carried evidence on her skin. The connection between their fathers changed everything. This was no longer about inheritance. It was about finishing a mission that had cost 2 men their lives. He ordered breakfast and watched Crane's movements. The saloon owner's behavior had shifted overnight. His attention focused too intently on Zara. His questions came too frequently. Buck recognized the signs of a predator circling prey. Zara served his meal with trembling hands. Her sleeve was mended, but her fear was obvious. Someone had questioned her about the tattoo. Someone had applied pressure. "Everything all right?" Buck asked quietly. She shook her head almost imperceptibly. The message was clear. Danger was closing in. Buck finished his meal quickly and paid his bill. As he left coins on the table, he palmed a small folded note beneath the money. Zara would find it when she cleared his dishes. The note contained 3 words and an address. Tonight, midnight, stable. Crane watched the exchange with growing suspicion. Rich men did not pass secret messages to kitchen help unless something valuable was at stake. His greed overcame his caution. He needed to know what those markings meant. That afternoon, Crane made his move. He approached Sheriff Wade Morrison with a proposition. Morrison was a useful man to have as an ally. His badge provided legal cover for activities that skirted the edges of the law. "I got a situation that needs your expertise," Crane explained. "Worker of mine might be hiding stolen property. Need you to question her official-like." Morrison's eyes lit with interest. He had built his own fortune through creative interpretation of justice. If Crane suspected valuable stolen goods, there would be profit for both of them. "What kind of property?" "Maps, survey information, worth a lot to the right buyer." Morrison's understanding of the territory's value made him immediately interested. Land surveys meant mineral rights. Mineral rights meant fortunes waiting to be claimed. "Bring her in tomorrow. I'll get the truth out of her." As evening approached, Zara's anxiety grew unbearable. Crane's questions had become demands. His threats had become promises. She knew her time at the saloon was ending one way or another. Midnight could not come fast enough. The stable behind the livery was dark and quiet when Buck arrived. He had spent the day gathering supplies and planning their next moves. If Zara agreed to partnership, they would need to leave Red Rock immediately. She appeared from the shadows like a ghost. Her few possessions were wrapped in a small bundle. She had made her choice before arriving. "Crane knows something's valuable," she whispered. "He's going to Sheriff Morrison tomorrow." Buck's blood ran cold. Morrison's reputation for corruption was well known throughout the territory. If he got involved, their chances of survival dropped considerably. "Then we leave tonight." Zara pulled up her sleeve and revealed the complete tattoo in the moonlight. Buck studied the intricate details with new urgency. The markings showed more than he had initially realized. "It's not just one survey," she explained. "My father mapped illegal land seizures across 3 territories. Names, dates, locations where families were driven off their property." Buck understood immediately. This was not just about finding treasure. It was about exposing systematic theft that had enriched corrupt officials for years. "Morrison's been stealing land?" "Him and others. My father was gathering evidence when they killed him." The scope of the conspiracy became clear. Jonathan Harrison and Augustus Thompson had died because they discovered a network of corruption that reached from local sheriffs to territorial governors. "We need those original documents," Buck said. "The ones your father hid." Zara nodded. "Sacramento. He kept a safe deposit box at the territorial bank." They would have to travel 300 miles through dangerous country. Morrison would pursue them with legal authority behind his hunt. But the alternative was worse. Staying meant death or disappearance into a system designed to silence inconvenient witnesses. Buck saddled 2 horses while Zara waited in the shadows. Her transformation had already begun. The submissive kitchen worker was disappearing, replaced by the intelligent woman she had been forced to hide. "Once we ride out, there's no going back," Buck warned. Zara looked toward the saloon where she had spent 4 years in bondage. Her father's sacrifice would not be wasted. Her silence would not protect the men who had destroyed her family. "I've been waiting 12 years to go back." They rode into the darkness as Red Rock slept. carrying secrets that could topple the corrupt empire built on stolen land and murdered witnesses. Dawn broke over the rocky terrain as Buck and Zara pushed their horses through the mountain pass. They had ridden hard through the night, putting distance between themselves and Red Rock, but both knew Morrison would discover their escape soon enough. Zara's transformation continued with each mile. The submissive posture she had maintained for years straightened into confident bearing. Her voice grew stronger when she spoke. The intelligent woman her father had raised was emerging from years of enforced silence. "The safe deposit box contains more than documents," she explained as they rested the horses near a stream. "My father kept detailed records of every corrupt official he identified. Names, dates, amounts stolen." Buck studied the landscape ahead. 3 days of hard riding to Sacramento if they avoided the main roads. Longer if Morrison's men forced them into the wilderness. "How do you know so much about his work?" "He trained me as his assistant. Mathematics, geography, legal procedures. Said knowledge was the only thing they couldn't steal from me." The irony was bitter. Augustus Thompson's efforts to protect his daughter had prepared her perfectly for the mission that would ultimately destroy his killers. Behind them, dust clouds appeared on the horizon. Morrison had discovered their escape faster than expected. "4 riders," Buck observed. "Moving fast." They mounted quickly and pushed deeper into the mountains. The terrain favored those who knew it well, but Morrison's men were experienced trackers. The chase would not be easily escaped. By midday, the pursuit had closed the distance. Morrison himself led the group, his badge gleaming in the sunlight. Beside him rode Crane and 2 hired guns whose reputations were built on finding people who did not want to be found. "There!" Morrison pointed toward a ridge where 2 figures on horseback were outlined against the sky. "We have them!" But Zara had chosen their route carefully. Her father's training included wilderness survival and tactical thinking. She led Buck through narrow passes and hidden trails that would slow their pursuers. "Canyon ahead splits 3 ways," she called over the sound of hoofbeats. "Left goes to Sacramento. Right leads to the old mining camps. Center is a dead end. Which way do we take?" "All of them." Zara's plan was simple but effective. They would leave false trails in each direction, then double back through terrain too rough for horses. Morrison's men would waste time following empty paths. They reached the canyon split and dismounted. Zara led one horse partway down the left path, then removed its shoes and sent it running toward Sacramento. Buck did the same with the right path, creating hoofprints that suggested they had separated. The third horse they kept, leading it carefully over rocky ground that would leave no tracks. They climbed toward higher ground, where caves offered temporary shelter. Morrison's group reached the canyon an hour later. The sheriff studied the 3 trails with growing frustration. "Smart," he admitted grudgingly. "Split up. Johnson, you take the left. Crane and Martinez take the right. I'll check the center path." The strategy worked perfectly. By evening, Morrison's men were scattered across 20 miles of rough country, following false leads while their quarry watched from the safety of a mountain cave. "Your father taught you well," Buck observed. Zara smiled for the first time since their escape began. "He said the best way to win a fight was to make your enemy fight himself." They traveled by night and rested during the day, avoiding main roads and settlements. Zara's knowledge of the territory proved invaluable. She knew which water sources were safe, which passes were watched, which towns had corrupt sheriffs. Buck found himself seeing her with new eyes. The frightened kitchen worker had completely disappeared, replaced by a capable partner whose intelligence impressed him daily. Her father's education had created a formidable woman. "What happened after they took you from California?" he asked during one of their rest stops. "Sold me to a family in Nevada. Worked their ranch for 3 years before they lost it to drought. Then a series of owners who each claimed I owed them money for room and board." "But you were freeborn. You had rights." "Rights require proof. Proof requires documents. Documents were locked in my father's safe deposit box." The system had trapped her perfectly. Without legal evidence of her status, she became property to be bought and sold. But her captors had made one crucial mistake. They had never discovered the evidence she carried on her skin. On the 3rd day, they reached the outskirts of Sacramento. The territorial capital bustled with activity as government officials, merchants, and settlers conducted business under the protection of federal law. Here, Morrison's badge carried less weight. Here, proper legal procedures might actually protect them. The territorial bank stood on the main street like a fortress of brick and iron. Inside those walls lay the documents that could expose a conspiracy spanning 3 territories and involving dozens of corrupt officials. But as they approached the building, Buck noticed familiar faces in the crowd. Morrison had anticipated their destination. His men were already in position. "He's here," Buck warned quietly. Zara studied the bank's entrances and the positioning of Morrison's men. Her father's tactical training suggested several possible approaches, but all carried significant risk. "The bank closes in 2 hours. If we don't reach that safe deposit box today, Morrison will have all night to position more men." They needed a plan that would get them inside the bank and back out alive. The evidence that could bring justice for their fathers lay just 50 yards away, protected by armed men who would kill to keep it buried. The final confrontation was approaching faster than either of them had hoped. Zara studied the bank building with tactical precision her father had drilled into her years ago. Morrison's men watched the front entrance and the alley exit, but they had overlooked the service entrance where merchants delivered supplies. "There's another way," she told Buck. "My father brought me here twice when I was young. Staff entrance on the north side leads directly to the vault level." Buck counted Morrison's visible men. 4 outside, probably more inside. The sheriff had resources and authority on his side, but he also had overconfidence. "He expects us to try the front door like desperate fugitives," Zara observed. "He doesn't know we understand his tactics." They waited until the afternoon shift change created brief confusion among the watchers. Zara led Buck through the merchant district behind the bank, using her knowledge of Sacramento's layout to approach unseen. The service entrance was guarded by a single clerk who barely glanced at them. Zara's transformation was complete now. She carried herself with the confidence of someone who belonged in important places. "We're here to access Augustus Thompson's safe deposit box," she told the clerk. "I have the key and identification." The clerk led them downstairs to the vault level. The massive iron door stood open during business hours, revealing rows of numbered boxes behind steel bars. Box 247 sat in the corner, smaller than Buck had expected. Zara produced a key she had carried for 12 years, hidden in the lining of her shoe. Her hands trembled as she turned it. Inside lay documents that would change everything. Land deeds proving her free birth and legal ownership of property worth thousands. Her father's detailed investigation notes naming corrupt officials across 3 territories, and most damning of all, financial records showing how stolen land was sold to enrich Morrison's network. "Sweet heaven," Buck breathed as he read the scope of the conspiracy. They stole from hundreds of families. Zara's eyes burned as she saw her father's handwriting again after 12 years. His careful documentation of crimes, his desperate attempts to build a case that would bring justice. But footsteps on the stairs above announced that their time was running out. Morrison's voice echoed down the stairwell. "Bank's surrounded. Come up peaceful and nobody gets hurt." The clerk who had helped them was backing toward the stairs, his face pale with sudden understanding of who they were. Zara made a decision that surprised Buck. Instead of trying to escape, she gathered every document from the box and walked toward the stairs. "What are you doing?" "Finishing this." She climbed the stairs with Buck following reluctantly. Morrison waited in the main banking floor with his men positioned at every exit. Crane stood beside him, grinning with anticipated profit. Well, well, the kitchen cook thinks she's important enough to rob banks." Zara stood straight, documents clutched against her chest. The transformation Buck had witnessed was complete. The frightened servant had become something Morrison was not prepared to handle. "I'm not robbing anything, Sheriff Morrison. I'm claiming what belongs to me." Morrison laughed. "You don't own nothing. You're Crane's property until your debt's worked off. Actually, I own more than you think." Zara spread Augustus Thompson's land deeds across the bank counter. The legal documents bore official seals and signatures that Morrison recognized with growing alarm. These deeds show ownership of property you seized illegally: the Hendricks Farm, the Morrison Valley grazing land, the silver claims near Deadwood Creek. Morrison's confidence wavered. Those properties had made him wealthy over the past 3 years. Forged documents don't mean nothing. But the bank manager had approached to examine the papers. His expertise in legal documents was well known throughout the territory. "These appear authentic," he announced, "properly witnessed and recorded." Zara pulled out more evidence. Financial records showing payments to Morrison from buyers of stolen land, correspondence between corrupt officials planning their thefts, names, dates, and amounts that painted a complete picture of systematic crime. "My father documented everything before you killed him." The bank manager's eyes widened as he realized what he was witnessing. Other customers had stopped their business to listen. Word of the confrontation was spreading through the building. Morrison felt control slipping away. His authority depended on secrets staying buried. Public exposure threatened everything he had built. "Arrest her for theft and forgery," he commanded his men. But the bank manager stepped between them. "These documents require examination by territorial authorities. I'm placing them in official custody pending investigation." Morrison's hand moved toward his gun, but Buck was ready. His own weapon appeared with practiced speed. "Careful, Sheriff. Lot of witnesses here." The standoff stretched taut as a wire. Morrison had the legal authority, but Buck had the moral high ground. The bank customers and staff watched nervously as two armed men faced each other over stolen documents. Zara broke the tension by addressing the crowd directly. "My name is Zara Thompson. My father, Augustus Thompson, was murdered 3 years ago for investigating land theft. These documents prove Sheriff Morrison has been stealing property from families across 3 territories." Her voice carried through the bank with absolute conviction. The frightened kitchen worker was gone forever, replaced by a woman demanding justice for her father's death. Morrison realized his mistake too late. By cornering them in public, he had given Zara the audience she needed. Her accusations would spread through Sacramento within hours. The territorial governor's office was just 2 blocks away. Federal marshals who outranked Morrison were probably already being summoned. "This isn't over," Morrison snarled as he backed toward the exit. But Zara smiled for the first time in 12 years. Her father's work was finally seeing daylight. Justice was coming at last. The territorial courthouse buzzed with tension as federal marshals arrived from Denver. Word of the corruption scandal had spread through Sacramento like wildfire. Augustus Thompson's documents promised to expose the largest land theft conspiracy in the territory's history. Zara sat at the prosecutor's table with confidence she had never been allowed to show. Her father's careful training emerged fully as she organized evidence and prepared testimony. The frightened kitchen worker had transformed into a formidable witness for justice. Buck watched from the gallery as she spread survey maps across the oak table. Her intelligence commanded respect from government officials who had initially dismissed her. The tattoo on her arm had become evidence of systematic crime rather than a mark of servitude. Federal Marshal William Carter studied the documents with growing amazement. Augustus Thompson's investigation had uncovered corruption reaching from local sheriffs to territorial appointees. "This evidence implicates over 30 officials," he told Zara. "Your father built an airtight case." Morrison entered the courthouse in shackles, his confidence shattered by the revelation of how thoroughly he had been investigated. Beside him walked Crane, equally shocked to discover that his kitchen worker had been carrying evidence worth thousands of dollars. The hearing began with Territorial Judge Samuel Hayes presiding. His reputation for fairness had made him the obvious choice to handle such sensitive material. Zara took the witness stand with steady hands. She rolled up her sleeve and revealed the complete tattoo to the crowded courtroom. Gasps echoed from the gallery as spectators saw the intricate geographical details. "My father, Augustus Thompson, etched this map into my skin the night Sheriff Morrison's men came for him. It contains surveying information that proves illegal seizure of land from dozens of families." She pointed to specific markings on her arm, explaining how each symbol corresponded to stolen property. The precision of her testimony impressed everyone present. Her father's education had prepared her perfectly for this moment. Morrison's lawyer attempted to discredit her testimony, but the physical evidence was undeniable. The tattoo matched Augustus Thompson's survey records exactly. Financial documents showed Morrison profiting from every theft. The defendant claims these accusations are fabricated, the lawyer argued weakly. Judge Hayes examined Augustus Thompson's investigation notes personally. The meticulous documentation left no room for doubt. The court finds this evidence compelling and authentic. Buck testified next, presenting his father's parallel investigation. Jonathan Harrison had been gathering evidence from a different angle, but his conclusions matched Augustus Thompson's findings perfectly. "My father was murdered because he discovered the same corruption network," Buck explained. Together, they had enough evidence to bring down the entire operation. The prosecution revealed the scope of the conspiracy step by step. Morrison had worked with corrupt land assessors to claim property was abandoned or tax delinquent. Families were driven off their land through legal manipulation and intimidation. The stolen property was then sold to Morrison's associates for enormous profits. Zara presented the most damning evidence last. Her father had recorded conversations with Morrison using a mechanical device hidden in his surveying equipment. The sheriff's own words condemned him. "We got to move fast on the Henderson place," Morrison's voice echoed through the courtroom. "Old man Henderson's getting suspicious about the tax claims." The recorded conversations detailed exactly how the thefts were planned and executed. Morrison's defense collapsed completely. Judge Hayes delivered his verdict with stern authority. Sheriff Wade Morrison is found guilty of conspiracy, theft, and murder. The court sentences him to life imprisonment. Crane received 10 years for his role in harboring stolen goods and participating in the conspiracy. His saloon was seized as evidence of criminal profits. But the hearing's most important moment came when Judge Hayes addressed Zara directly. "Miss Thompson, the court recognizes your legal status as a free citizen wrongfully held in bondage. All debts claimed against you are hereby declared void and illegal." Zara felt 12 years of fear and oppression lift from her shoulders. Her father's sacrifice had achieved its purpose. Justice had finally arrived. The court also awarded her ownership of all property proven stolen in Augustus Thompson's investigation. The land rights her father had discovered were legally hers, making her one of the wealthiest individuals in the territory. Buck approached as she gathered her father's documents after the hearing. "What will you do now?" Zara looked at the evidence that had transformed her life. Her father's work deserved continuation. Finish what he started. There are more families who need their land returned. She established the Thompson Investigation Agency in Sacramento, using her inheritance to help victims of corruption reclaim their property. Her unique combination of surveying knowledge and legal training made her remarkably effective. Buck became her business partner, contributing his resources and connections to expand their reach. Together, they recovered stolen land worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. The tattoo that had once marked her as property became the symbol of her agency. Families throughout the territory learned to trust the woman who carried justice literally written on her skin. Zara opened an office on Sacramento's Main Street with her name painted proudly on the window. Augustus Thompson's daughter had emerged from the kitchen to claim her rightful place in the world. She kept her father's surveying tools on display, along with the legal documents that had exposed the corruption network. Visitors often asked about the intricate tattoo on her arm. She would roll up her sleeve and explain how her father's love had transformed a desperate attempt at preservation into the key to justice. The marks that seemed like scars had become the foundation of her success. Every morning she looked at his photograph on her desk and spoke the same words. "The work continues, Papa. The work continues." The kitchen had been left far behind. The woman who emerged carried her father's legacy forward with unshakable determination. Justice had found its voice at last.